the beginning of our conversation, beginning-ish, you were talking about how I think at the Air Force, it was okay to use open source, but there was pushback in terms of contributing back. If you remember, like, what were the biggest reasons for them to say that using is okay, contributing is not okay? Like,
Yeah.
were they fearful about something, or it was more around, the resource allocation and giving things away? If you remember what the concerns were, what the arguments were, or if you have an experience to share in terms of making that argument.
Yeah, there were two main fears. One was that some sort of proprietary information or would get out into the open source product, and then how do you deal with that, or how do you do those things? And then the other concern was, how do we advocate or argue for taxpayer money, or stewards of taxpayer money, to be spent on this other thing, this open source? This It's not really part of the mission of the Department of Defense to contribute back to open source. So how do we advocate for that as well? Um, the first part is not too complicated. Is policy, and certain organizations have like review processes by which that they go through. I was able to start the ball rolling with the last organization I was at, which was good to work with a few government civilians and the commander of our squadron to get actually like the wing involved and being able to have like an open source like kind of office that we could actually release some of our projects under open source licenses. And that actually happened after I left, but it did happen, which was really cool to see. um, and then the other thing that to answer the other part, that was really sort of quantifying the importance of a given open source project to us, and how we used it, and then why we want to be maintaining it in some way. So one of the things that we used a lot of Ansible at one of the places I worked, and we used a lot of like open source Ansible playbooks and things. And so I advocated, and it's mostly a paperwork drill, but advocated for some of our contractors to become maintainers and be paid on government time to maintain these, because of the importance to our infrastructure if these things went away or whatever. And so basically for that, it was a lot of quantifying how we use them, what they're for, how all this stuff, and then kind of pushing that through and getting it through. Um, so yeah, a lot of it is like it's not so much that you'll get a ton of resistance, because a lot of people don't like know or don't really have an opinion one way or the other. It's mostly that they just don't feel like they can, and then they'll kind of come up with either excuses or things, or they're not aware of enough of policy. And so it's kind of a lot of it's going out and doing research, finding what those policies are, and then what you can use, and then putting it all together into a bunch of paperwork that you submit and can get signed off. Um, and so yeah, so that's usually what I kind of ran into, and then how we dealt with it.
So a good practice is to not just focus on the why you would do this, but also on the fact that you can do this and this is how you would do this. So make that sort of part of the argument, not just the reasoning behind why we should do this, but also how.
Yeah, how and who and what exactly, like we had named people that we wanted to have be maintainers on those Ansible playbooks, and yeah, how we would do it, how much time we would dedicate to it and whatnot, various things like that.